And as the courthouse clock strikes 3, I guess we are getting ready to start today's talk. Well, hello. It is 3 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, April 5th, I believe. Yeah. And we are today in downtown Bel Air, Maryland. That's the county seat of Harford County, one of the northernmost counties in Maryland. I'm just going to move away from the busyness of Main Street into one of the side streets. So behind me is the historic courthouse. As I say, this is the county seat. The original courthouse was built here in the 1790s. Naturally, as with many old buildings, it burned down, and they built a new one in 1858. And there have been extensions and modifications to it since then, but that original 1858 building is still extant there. So why are we here today? Why are we in northern Maryland? When we think of the Civil War, we typically think of battles in the Eastern Theater. We'd think of battles in Virginia, coming up the Shenandoah Valley and crossing into western Maryland, and then into up to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. But we don't really think of northeastern Maryland as a theater of war. And it really wasn't much of a theater of war. There was a cavalry raid through this county by Confederate cavalry in 1648. But in 1648 siege, Colchester, 1864. But in 1861, at the outbreak of Civil War, Harford County was an interesting place. It is to the north of Baltimore City. So if you leave Baltimore City, heading north by train, by Amtrak today, you will eventually come through Harford County, and then you'll hit the Susquehanna River and cross the old B&O or CSX railroad bridges on the Susquehanna River and find your way headed north to Pennsylvania. Well, in 1861, the railroad did come north out of Baltimore, heading north towards Pennsylvania, through Harford County. And when it got to the Susquehanna River, there was no bridge there. There was a ferry. So Union troops heading south from New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, heading towards Washington, D.C. to assemble for that first Manassas campaign, that first Bull Run campaign in the summer of 1861, had to come down south through Harford County. One of the things that the mayor of Baltimore did and secessionist sympathizers did was they sent people north into Harford County and burned some of the railroad trestles, which meant that getting trains down from the north to Baltimore City became very, very difficult. So when the Union eventually re-established control over Baltimore City, Benjamin Butler put that under martial law with 2 regiments of infantry, and re-established solid Union control over Baltimore City. They had to do something to secure those railroad lines, those very important lines of communication between the north and down to Washington, D.C. So the Union Army created what they called the Middle Department. So a new department. It's sometimes referred to as Dix's Command, D-I-X, after Major General Dix, who was one of the commanders. Sometimes referred to as 8th Corps of the Union Army. Essentially, it is security troops, line of communication troops, protecting the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad north out of Baltimore and up into Pennsylvania to prevent any sabotage on those railroads. Maryland itself in 1861 was a divided state. Maryland is immediately below the Mason-Dixon line. Maryland in 1861 is a slave state, but remains in the Union. It does not secede from the Union. There are several reasons for that. Maryland is a constitutional unionist state, so it's not voted Republican, it's not voted for Abraham Lincoln, it's voted more of the constitutional unionist line. It wants to remain in the Union, but it also wants to remain a slave state. It does not wish to secede from the Union. But there are Confederate sympathizers and there are secessionist sympathizers then within Maryland itself. It's a split state. And there will be, as well as Union regiments raised in Maryland throughout the war, there will be 2 cavalry regiments and 2 infantry regiments and a couple of batteries of artillery raised for the Confederate Army in Maryland during the Civil War. So there are some divided loyalties in the state, and there are some leading citizens of the state, for example, such as the mayor of Baltimore, that are a little bit suspicious. And that's why in 1861 Baltimore was placed under martial law and the mayor is temporarily arrested. So, but Harford County, up here in the northeast corner of the state of Maryland, I want to talk about a particular event that happened on July the 31st, 1861. So, as you know, war broke out in April of 1861. The Battle of Manassas has happened. The Battle of Bull Run has happened. Was now at the end of July 1861. The line of communications troops, that middle department, is garrisoned predominantly by Pennsylvania troops. Pennsylvania infantry troops have been split up into company-sized detachments, sometimes 2 or 3 companies together to provide a stronger force, but small detachments up and down the line throughout Maryland. So there's a detachment at Elkton, there's a detachment at Northeast, there's a detachment at Perryville, there's one at Havre de Grace, there's one on the Gunpowder River crossings. But there is nothing up here at the county seat in Bel Air in Harford County. And the reason for that is that the railroad does not go through Bel Air. Bel Air is a very central location in the county, and that's why a lot of the roads lead here. But the main north-south road, the old post road, runs far to the south of here, not far to the south of here, a good 10 miles to the south of here. And when they built the railroad alongside the old post road. So that road that back in 1775, 1776, 1777, those roads that were travelled during the Revolutionary War, where the George Washington slept here signs, that's all down on the old post road. And when the railroads were in the railroads were laid in the 1840s, that's where the railroads were laid. So Bel Air, though it's the county seat and has this beautiful historic courthouse behind me and some beautiful historic buildings in the old courthouse square that surround us, that are now mostly attorneys' offices or bizarrely CBD products, was the county seat but did not have the railroad come through here. So it's a little off the beaten track as far as security is concerned. The troops were primarily concerned with the security of those railroads. They were not concerned with the security of the hinterland itself. But towards the end of July in 1861, the Union Army receives a rumour, some intelligence, that there is an arms cache up here in Bel Air, Maryland, that secessionist sympathizers, such as Captain Jarrett Archer of the local militia, and a leading citizen, Thomas Hayes, one of the largest landowners and slave owners in the county, that as secessionist Confederate sympathizers, they've established an arms cache up here in Harford County. And so the 12th Pennsylvania, which is one of the regiments which is securing the line of communications, assembles a force of 300 men, so a good strong battalion of like several companies under the command of Captain LeSure, and they march up from the railroad line, march up Old Emerton Road into Bel Air, and launch on the 31st of July. They launch a raid into Bel Air to try and catch the secessionist sympathizers red-handed, as it were. Well, they come here to the courthouse, and they come here to Courthouse Square, and they search and they can't find anything. So they then start looking for notable citizens to pick up and arrest. One of those citizens they will arrest will be Thomas Hayes, as I said, a local farm owner, also a local slave owner, a secessionist sympathizer. So Thomas Hayes is arrested. The historic Hayes house that belonged to him is about 400 or 500 yards behind the courthouse and along Bond Street. So his historic house belonging to him is still here in town. But Thomas Hayes is arrested. Also, the local militia commander, Captain Jarrett Archer, he is arrested on suspicion of being a Confederate sympathizer. And those men are held temporarily. They will be released. But as so much we know, habeas corpus has been suspended by Abraham Lincoln during this period. So men could be arrested by the military, held without trial, held without due process, as it were. And so that's one of the things that happens here in Harford County. Today it's still a sleepy little county seat. As you can see, there's Courthouse here, Courthouse Square, Sheriff's Office across. I think I can actually see crossing the road over there at the crossing. I actually think I can see Sheriff Garner. Yep, that's him. Anyway, so it's a nice little town to visit. It's got some historic buildings, got some nice little restaurants, a couple of bars, and so on and so forth. But it's not a big tourist attraction. It's not a big draw today for travellers going to and from the north. The 95 corridor pretty much follows the railroad tracks and that old post road. So the Interstate 95 passes quite far to the south of here, a good 10 miles to the south of here. So it's bypassed by most people. But the idea that there may have been secessionist sympathizers up here, enabling saboteurs to arm themselves and come down and raid the railroad tracks, gave cause for concern to the Union forces, which is why they sent troops from the 12th Pennsylvania up here to launch that raid. And then in frustration, and also to make sure that the secessionist sympathizers were arrested those two prominent citizens, as well as some other people as well. This was not an uncommon course of events. There'd be other rumours throughout the war that so-and-so was collecting supplies for the Confederacy, collecting money, collecting arms, etc. And people would be detained, questioned, and then either held indefinitely or released without charge. But so that's what that 8th Corps, the Middle Department, Dix's command, if you've heard of those, primarily concerned with. The courthouse itself is an interesting building. As I say, this one dates back to the reconstruction of this one after the original 1790s building burned down. The construction on this one began in 1858 and was pretty much completed by 1859. And through those main doors there, which you don't use today, you actually go around the side and go through the security gate. But through the main doors there will take you to the older historic courthouse, in the old historic courtroom, in which could also be used by the local residents of Bel Air as a theatre. Now, Harford County is known as the birthplace of some famous actors. A famous Shakespearean actor lived down the road at a place called Tudor Hall. His name was John Junius Booth, one of the leading Shakespearean actors in America, and one of the leading Shakespearean actors in Britain before he came to live in the Americas. He established a farm here in Bel Air that he would return to in between acting engagements. He had a common law wife here. He was actually in a bigamous marriage. He was married back in Britain, never got divorced, remarried, as it were, here in America, and started a second family here in America. And amongst his children were 3 children that would go on to become notable actors as well. Edwin Booth, John Junius Booth Jr., and John Wilkes Booth. And the 3 of them, Edwin Booth in particular, made his acting debut here, and the 3 Booth boys, I believe, actually played Julius Caesar here. One of them playing Julius Caesar, one playing Mark Antony, one playing Brutus. Actually played Julius Caesar here at the courthouse before the war. So there's a connection here to the Booth family. If you go inside the courthouse, which we're not going to today because I've got too many things in my pockets, keychains and pocket knife and alfalfa cubes for the horses and all sorts of stuff that I'd have to get out and go through the security guard. But another day we'll get permission from the administrative judge and we'll go in and we'll have a look around that courtroom, the courthouse. There is inside a gallery of portraits of local notables, and one of the notables in there is Thomas Hay, one of those guys who was arrested. There's another portrait in there of Brigadier General James Archer, who was born in Harford County. He was commanding a brigade of troops in Harry Heth's division at Gettysburg. He, in fact, was the lead brigade of Heth's division that came down the Chambersburg Pike on July the 1st, 1863, and got into that tussle with General Buford's cavalry. And Archer was actually captured in the action. So captured at Gettysburg, later exchanged in a prisoner exchange, but one of the participants in the Battle of Gettysburg came from here. Harford County is also home, of course, to Sergeant Alfred Hilton, Medal of Honor winner, 4th United States Colored Troops, won his Medal of Honor at the Battle of Newmarket Heights in 1864 for carrying both the regimental colour and the United States flag. When the colour bearers fell, he picked up both flags from the ground and carried both flags forward at the head of his regiment, leading him in an assault on Newmarket Heights, as a result of which he was awarded the Medal of Honor. There is sometimes claimed that there's a second Medal of Honor winner from Harford County. That would be Colonel Phelps of the 7th Maryland. 7th Maryland was a predominantly Harford County regiment. It was originally raised here in 1862, and its first colonel, Colonel Webster, was a local attorney and a Methodist lay preacher. And he indeed was from Harford County. There's Webster Roads and Webster Chapel named after him. But after he resigned to return to his political duties, and the regiment was taken over by Captain John Phelps, he would win the Medal of Honor himself, and he's sometimes noted as being a Harford County resident on account of leading the 7th Maryland, but in fact he was born in Baltimore City. He was an attorney in Baltimore County and later became a Baltimore County Circuit Court judge. So there's a historical marker around here somewhere. Go look for it later and take a photograph. There's a historical marker around here somewhere that claims that Phelps is also a Harford County Medal of Honor winner, but I think the credit for that one goes to Baltimore City or Baltimore County. But we do claim, and rightly so and proudly so, Sergeant Alfred Hilton, the 4th United States Colored Troops, Company H, Medal of Honor winner, 1864. The Booth Association is quite interesting with Harford County. It's not something that they really talk about much. In the old post office, there is a Works Progress Administration. So remember what those programs that Franklin Delano Roosevelt started during the 1930s to get people back to work. One of those within the Works Progress Administration was hiring artists. And so there's a mural painted in the old post office depicting the 3 Booth boys on stage doing their rendition of Julius Caesar. So there's that connection here as well. It's what they call here outside, that fountain there, which is referred to sometimes as the Bel Air fountain, is actually a memorial fountain dedicated to Edwin Booth, the more popular actor of the 3 brothers. There's a statue of him, I believe, in Gramercy Park in New York. Supposedly the best actor of the 3, more notable than his brother John Wilkes. But there is that association with John Wilkes Booth here in Harford County as well. He was educated here, private school here, as a young boy. So his first experiences in life were here in Bel Air. Tudor Hall, the family home, is about 5 miles north of here, on the old Churchville Pike. It's in a more remote farming location at the time, so the farm was located outside of town, and to walk up here into town every day would have been a good hike up the hill. It's now all been, that land that was open farmland has now all been built over with subdivisions of housing and retail development and so forth. But Tudor Hall itself is tucked away from the road down a side lane, and it's been preserved. Not all of the buildings are preserved, but the main building of Tudor Hall itself is preserved. It's held by a charitable trust and in association with a local historical society. That's sometimes open for tours. So it's worth looking if you're coming towards this region and you're on one of those John Wilkes Booth legacy tours, and that's something that interests you, then look up Tudor Hall, spelled Tudor, Tudor, like the Kings, Tudor Hall in Bel Air, and you'll be able to find the website for that and whether there's any opening times and visits. The gardens are beautifully, immaculately kept there, and the whole story of the family and the whole sorry story of the family is laid out there itself. If you arrive on a day in which the building is not open, the gates will be closed and you will not be able to get access to it. So do check ahead of coming up here. But if you do come to Bel Air, Maryland, there is lots to do and see. As I said, there's a fair number of nice restaurants here, a fair number of nice bars and little knicky-knack shops. It's one of the small towns in America in which there is still retail on Main Street. This is Main Street here, so there are still some stores left on Main Street. It's not completely been reduced to out-of-town shopping and just cars. It's busy, as you see, because there's a one-way system and it directs all northbound traffic up Main Street. North-southbound traffic goes behind the courthouse on Bond Street. And of course we're at 3 o'clock, so schools are starting to let out, and a lot of this will be school traffic, people on the school run. So a bit of a short talk today. Just really it interested me that there was something in my immediate backyard, less than 10 miles from my house, in which an event had occurred, this dawn raid by the 12th Pennsylvania to try and catch these secessionist sympathizers red-handed with an arms cache, which had come to nothing. It was a failed raid. But it was interesting that this far north, that events would occur, and that if events could occur here, then similar events would also then occur in other parts as well. So another time we're going to try and have a word with the administrative judge, and we'll see if we can get in and take some, if not video, some photographs inside of that rogues gallery of local notables that includes Brigadier General Archer and Thomas Hayes, and also some other local notables as well. So hope you enjoyed the little chat today. It hasn't been a long one. We've got some other talks coming up in the near future. Next week on the 12th, we have a talk coming up. I think we're doing, actually, surprise, surprise, Archer's Brigade at Gettysburg. So we'll be out at Gettysburg talking about Archer's Brigade on that first day. So you see how I've kind of tried to link the two things. We talked a little bit about John Archer today and his portrait hanging in the building behind me and him being a resident of Harford County. And next week we'll be out on the field at Gettysburg, walking the ground on that first day's battle as Harry Heth's division came down Chambersburg Pike and ran straight into John Buford's division of cavalry. So we'll be talking about that next week. Head on over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/walkingtheground, all one word, walking the ground. There'll be a whole list of events on there. Click on events and just click interested or going on to the events that you're interested in. We've got other ones coming up for the Battle of Monocacy. We'll be out at Monocacy, we're out at Gettysburg, and some other locations as well. I just saw a question pop up: did Booth and Hayes know each other as children? I think they're a generation apart. So the father, Senior Booth, John Junius Booth, may have known Hayes as a local notable. But I don't know whether the Hayes children were at the same school as the Booth children, but they're a different generation. So the Booth family and the Hayes family were well known in the county, but I don't think they would have known each other. So thanks for joining me today. If there were any other questions that had popped up in the thing that I didn't notice immediately, when I finished the tour and downloaded this video, I'll hop back onto Facebook and answer as many of those questions as I can. So thank you for joining me today on this little chat from Harford County. If you've got any questions on this courthouse behind me, on that raid by the 12th Pennsylvania, on the whole setup of the Middle Department 8th Corps for guarding those lines of communication, I've got some extra information I can put up about those and answer any questions on those. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for supporting me on social media, and I will see you at Gettysburg next week.